everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the top 15, not 20, the top 15 games about real life locations. The first one, let's see if you can figure out this order, is Coney Island 1910.
So Coney Island is all about building the theme parks that were on Coney Island. And there's a couple different types of cards. There's attractions and then there's specialists. And then in the attractions, there are rides that give you lots of points. There's food that basically give you discounts. And then there's merchandise that if you have more than your opponent of a certain merchandise type, then you get to draw extra cards. The specialist lets you do stuff, right? So they give you special abilities, but one of the things they let you do is put out fires. And this is my easily my favorite thing about the whole game is that there were actual rides that caused fires that burned down the parks. And so if you have those, clearly they're worth a jillion points, right? But you have to do a fire check, and you might instant lose. I love it so much.
So good.
You might instant lose unless you have the specialist that's a firefighter. So Coney Island, kind of like a tableau point builder, but neat in that there's multi-purpose cards and stuff. Looks fun.
Tag and Nazca. It is Nazca lines were these ancient lines across Peru. They were almost like crop circles, but they were lines and shapes. And the theme of this one is that it was aliens and they were graffiti and whatever they were. You have these characters that are trying to get their personal trademark on these lines, and the way you do it is by creating a 3x3 grid of cards. You're making a shape. There are different tags. There's an astronaut and a condor just represented by squares on the grid. But as you play cards to this grid, you'll start to form it. As you know, with some of these grid-based games, you don't start out with a grid. You form it as you go. So if I play a card, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the middle card. It might be the left or the right until I start playing cards next to it. But with this one, there's certain cards that tell you this belongs in this position in the grid. So it'll say it's the top right card of the grid. If you've already played cards above and to the right of that, those cards are wiped away in a really neat way that it sort of resets the game. It restructures the grid, and the player that plays it has a lot of control over the shape at that point. So the timing of that can be interesting. The placement of it is the placement is interesting based on what's in play. Panama. Panama is the famous Panama Canal, which in this game and in real life, it's just famously crowded. And I love the line. I always kind of rag on themes that are like super situational. It's like, in the Panama Canal on a Wednesday, this happened. You know, it's like, so you got to get into the situation. But this one is very situational, but crack me up. It's that you are trying to get through, but another captain has accidentally been scheduled on the same day. And I got a kick out of that. And it's one of those things where I almost dismiss things because it's so situational, but it was really funny. But anyway, so you have cards. It's on a it's almost like a grid, and you're going from one side to the other with your ships. They're all different ships, and all different ships behave in different ways. So you start out with yours might be on the left, and the whole goal of the game is to make it to the right. The cards are going to go around each other. Some go through each other. They go up and around. They all move differently. There's a tugboat that pushes cards around. And there's a specific boat. I don't remember which one. Oh, the Bulwark.
It's like a cruise. Oh, yeah. It's a big cruise liner thing.
Yeah.
The Bulwark can push other things.
Oh, no. That's the one that pushes. The cruiser, yeah. It requires the tugboat to move, but it has super big points. Reminded me a little bit of Hive. It's kind of like Hive meets Battleship with the theme of Battleship. You're not destroying each other's stuff, but it just... it was Hive-like with cards and interesting abilities and interesting movement. Skulls of Sedlec. Is it Sedlec? Sedlec.
Sedlec.
Yeah, so Sedlec, the Sedlec ossuary, 16th century AD. The Black Plague and the Hussite wars have overcrowded the graveyard. Help the bone collector by exhuming graves and arranging skulls inside the crypt. this,
Just as an aside, this is exactly why we did this contest.
yeah,
There's this whole thing about like the monks just like exhumed these bodies and made ridiculously intricate sculptures with skulls and bones. Like you should Google, like pause this video,
yep,
open a new window, Google this thing, and look at it's so cool. This is exactly why we did this contest.
yeah,
Anyway,
it
sorry to
is.
interrupt, but this is so cool.
This game stood out to me early on because it did a lot of things that I look for. It has a cool, like, not a draft, but a way that you take your turn is that you flip over. You take the card that's face up, or you flip two cards and have to take one of those. So it's got this just cool way that cards come out. They're in this like 3x2 grid of just decks. But when you place them into your little. It's almost like a pyramid that you're making.
It is a pyramid.
It is a pyramid, but not like a
Yeah,
pyramid.
it's either base four. Well, yeah, it's base four for two players and base three for
Yep.
three players.
And you have to start at the bottom and have to work your way up. And things are going to score. It's every card has two skulls on it, and they're going to score in drastically different ways. The royals want to be on top of royals and peasants. So, if you and the time that you get these things, you have to play them as soon as you get them. So, getting a royal early might be points later. Getting a royal late, activates the points that the ones that you played earlier. Priests, there's priests and criminals, and
One in every row.
priests are one
Priests
every
want to be
row.
one on every row.
Criminals want to be connected.
Criminals
to
want to be
priests.
near priests. Yep.
And then
Romantics want to be together.
Yeah, and
I love it. Yeah.
it does a lot of things that I love. I love a nice table presence. There's cool interaction. It's just a really, really cool game.
All right, so the next one's mine. The next one is State Line Road. So State Line Road divides Kansas and Missouri, and the game is built on like the rival economies of these two cities. And at its heart, you're purchasing cards, and they have resources and set collection and scoring conditions. And that part is not too different from other games you may have seen. What makes this game awesome, or at least interesting to me that we have to play it, is that one person sort of sets up the auction. So there's a card that has different prices on it. Like let's just say $1, $2, and $3. And I'm going to take three cards and put two of them face up and one of them face down on these $1, $2, and $3. And so that sets up the draft for the round. So you might purchase a gamble face down for $2, and the backs of the cards track the economy, which is kind of cool. So when you acquire them, right, you want this card adjacent to this card, and this card pays out this card or whatever. But the kicker is that whole setup of that auction, I think, is super, super interesting. It's like a whole different version of I Cut You Choose, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. So it's Hobsons Bay, between the city and the flood. So Hobsons Bay is a stretch of wetland off of the west coast of Melbourne, Australia. And the idea with this game is that you have four sort of coastal areas, and on one side you have their urban developments, and on the other side you have the resources that are available to migratory birds. Okay, so what's going to happen is at the end of each round, migratory birds are going to visit these regions, and if they have a place to nest and food, then they will return back to the north. On their like face up, basically, right? If they can't do that, then they get flipped and they return to the north depleted. So what you have to do is you have to keep the residents happy, and the actual goal is to build enough support for wetlands that you preserve all the wetlands. So one of your actions is to build support. But you need to keep your residents happy, so you can take actions such as expanding the wetland, or you can work on the city side, or you can also work on the wetland side and add more food options for the birds. So this really cool little solo game where you're sort of managing threats on both sides, trying to keep the people happy, increase the support for voting for these wetlands, and the others. So it's just like, it's solo, it's like bioscience themed. Like, I don't know if this guy made the game for me, but
Next up is Avenue Montaigne.
Montaigne. Yeah, sure. Avenue Montaigne. So we're talking about a street in Paris, France. That's the highlight. It's sort of the pinnacle of fashion. Okay, and so this is a mechanic we've seen before. If you've played Potions class, or if you played Biblios, where you're going to put things in three spaces. You can do it one card at a time. So if you draw the first card, you're going to decide to keep it, to give it to your opponent, or to put it on display in the windows of these shops on the avenue. Okay, so if you keep it, you're going to try to sell those later. So basically, you're acquiring your cards that you're going to try to gain points from. But if you put it in the streets, those are what people are going to see and want to buy. So the stuff in the streets are going to give majority of favored color or colors we don't like. And so the cards in your hand are going to score based on, we have skirts and shirts and pants and things like that. So like each card has 2 colors on it basically. So is your color the favorite in this street? Is it disliked in this street? It'll score negative points. So you're trying to make sure you give cards to your opponent that you think are going to be negatives, keep cards that you think can be positives, and then put your multipliers in the store rows.
This is Can You Fathom the Mariana Trench, which is, as Mike just reminded me, the deepest part of the ocean. This was a cool game because really good table presence. You set up this line of cards that are all just water cards, and then you've got your boat, and you've got the top. And what you're doing is you're diving down with your boat into the ocean, and you're flipping over these water cards to see what kind of creatures you're going to find. If you find the creatures, you can snag them and take them back up to the top for big points at the end of the game. But the really cool decision that really took this one over the edge for me was you could choose to not snag the creatures and just take a bonus that's extra, just a whole variety of extra. What were they? I can't remember the units, what they were called.
So you can upgrade your ship. So At the beginning, your submarine can only go down 2,000 feet at a time. So 2 cards.
Yep.
Right. So in the video, the first thing he pulled was your new distance is 3. So then you can go 3 down in 1 turn. Right. And so reaching the bottom of the trench, you get a research point. So research points are sort of how you advance the game. And then all the fish you collect and return to the surface are the set collection aspect of it.
Wallfish, you may recognize immediately the designer of the previous game that made our finals, Exit Pursued by a Bear. And every time
we got to meet at
we did.
PAX Unplugged.
Exactly, and
several others of you. I should say that we got to meet lots of you at PAX Unplugged, so that was awesome. Thanks for coming by the booth.
That was really cool. So many people that I didn't even expect to see there, and just recognize them from the videos. Especially this one, because his pitches are so good, and I keep telling Mike that these are the perfect pitches. I've said it before. They're confident, they're passionate, and with the theme that we're going to just describe in a second, all of that is almost required to make this palatable. Without that pitch and just the delivery of everything, you'd be like, what?
It's the 1960s, and wallfish are having a resurgence in the kitchens of Somerset, England. But what's a wallfish, you ask? It's edible garden snails, and we're gonna breed the snot out of them.
So at its heart, this is very similar to cribbage, in that we have what's called the stud snail in the beginning, okay, and then I'm going to have cards in my garden, and there's going to be cards in your garden, and we are going to try to make either sets of 7. So if we have a 3 and a 3 and a 1, that's a 7, and those snails will mate and give us a point. Or if they have the exact same number of bony spines, so 1 and a 1 or a 2 and a 2. The one thing is that snails are careful to not inbreed, so a red snail won't mate with a red snail. So again, very similar to cribbage in that once we get to the end of the round, I'm going to flip up my garden and count my points against, I'm going to add the stud snail, and we're going to count all these things up. So, okay, I can make a 7 here and a 7 here and a 7 here for 3, and then I have 2 1s and 2 1s, and so the game goes to 70 total points, but just a really, really clever implementation of, at its core, again, it's cribbage, and I don't want to make it sound derivative because it's done so well, but take 18 cards and reconceptualize and reimagine a way to make cribs, and it's just really neat. Oh, making Manhattan, I thought this was really cool. So this is another one, and we did expect some games like this. State Line Road and Coney Island, where you're going to be building stuff, right? I mean, we ask for specific locations, we expect to build stuff. So what's the hook for making Manhattan? Okay. The hook is that you have these areas. You can be in the central, you can be in Central Park, or you can be Upper East Side or Upper West Side. So I can play cards into the central area, into the park area, or to my side, east side or west. Okay. Each card has something that will fire off depending on where you place it, right? So I might have like +4 points if I play it in the central area. Okay. I might have a cool effect if I place it in the park area. And then I have a scoring condition like, adjacency or whatever if I place it in the Upper East Side area. So basically each card can be used to generate points, to do cool stuff, or to like provide additional opportunities to score, and just all done in a really clean way where I'm building a line from left to right, like kind of a tableau. And I just decide if I want to slide it here to this stop, or to this stop. So it's not all about, it's not like a tile layer. It's just where am I playing this card? How am I using this card? Points, point generator engines or abilities, just really clever.
From War was it caught my eye immediately because it was just so different than everything else. It was a solo only game, quick solo only game about war in Europe, 1940s, so World War II. And your cards are all postcards, and they're the letters from war, which is just super cool theme. And the location, I guess, in this is Europe, but it's kind of like where they're coming from, where your letters are coming from more than anything. Every card is a postcard, so it's got a unique image on the front. It has a little, I guess, flavorful letter on the back, but they have abilities. They're altering the location of the postcards. You're swapping things in this kind of line from beginning to end, and trying to essentially get this timeline to work out in the end. You win if the timeline's in order, and you lose if you run out of cards or a soldier was killed in battle. So it's just a cool little solo game that just has it's oozing its theme, and yeah, I mean, that's what I got from it.
Champs-Élysées.
Thank you. It's a game based off of it's a line of shops, museums and parks, from the Arc de Triomphe to Musée Louvre. I don't know how to say any of this, but essentially it's this line of shops on either side of is it a waterway, or is it just a road? I'm not exactly sure.
It's road, so it's a big arch, and it's a roadway.
So the line of shops, you're going to build them. It's a set collection game where you play one card on your first turn, then 2 cards on every turn after that, on your side of the road. So I'm playing head to head against you, and as I play cards on my side of the road, I'm trying to set scoring conditions, and I'm trying to achieve those scoring conditions. So it's neat in that how which cards you decide to play, when you decide to play them. You're watching things happen. It has a cool table presence in how it kind of forms this line, and it's just a pure set collection. The thing about this game is it's designed by Nat Levan, who I believe this contest was made for. Nat did exactly what we expected. And
it's funny because he held off and he was a judge for the first few contests, and then we were like, location, and he's like, I'm out, baby. Oreos. So these were big, beautiful granaries in Spain, and they actually competed to have like the biggest, longest granary. And the one that actually won, it was the longest, kind of lost out in the end because the other one ended up becoming like this famous landmark and stuff. But basically, we are building these granaries from a draft. We're drafting cards and building these granaries. You can cover parts of a card, but not the whole card. And, they have this scoring condition. So they have things on top. They have supports on the bottom. So there's some standard scoring conditions that are going to apply. But the interesting part is that you have 2 action cards that each have 2 sides. There is the plan, so take something into your plan. There is build, so take it from your plan and put it into your Oreo. there is steel, or not steel. You can turn your opponent's plan around. So you're playing these action cards, and that determines what you're going to do next. But you can affect your opponent, what he does. So maybe all of a sudden they were going to try to plan, but you flip their card and they have to build. And then if you happen to both say the same thing, you have one foreman who decides how they resolve. And after they resolve, the foreman passes to your opponent. So if we tie again, it'll pass back to me. If we tie again, it'll pass back to you. So again, in the whole avenue of building something, set collection, and scoring. So what's different that made it make this list? That whole idea of the actions are in cards in our hands that we're going to simultaneously reveal and decide who's doing what next. So you go from plan to building, but to do that, you have to do these cool actions. So that's Oreos. Tinkat is about these delicacies called kue. And the kue will get put in these tiffins. So you may have seen these tiffins before, where they're multiple layers of these metal, like warming trays that you can stack and then carry with one big handle, right? So it's a tiffin. So it's sort of a circle draft kind of thing, where you have the different food stalls. What's cool about the food stalls is they have a busy side, which is going to be cheap to acquire, and then a busy side is going to be expensive to acquire, and then I forget what the other slow, relaxed something side that's cheap and easy to acquire. There is a trishaw, which is going to be going around and sort of telling you where you can act. And so one of your actions is to move the trishaw. Everyone it moves past flips that card over. So you're going to be collecting these kue and putting them in your tiffins, and it actually looks very similar to the super tall cards, where you can stack part of a card over part of another card. So you're going to have the tiffins that get layered up to 4, and so the top one is going to tell you how you score the other kue in that tiffin. So you're going to be building the different tiffins. You're going to be paying for them as you go around, so you're going to pay the busy side or the slow side. Just a really cool way to like draft those things. So even though the cards look similar to Super Tall, it could not come out and be acquired and scored differently.
All right, The last game for everybody that's been waiting is Death Valley. You are, it's a press your luck game where you're taking cards one by one, and they're in a top row, and I forget the name of the top row. There's 2 different names.
That's your location row, I believe.
It's your location. And then you can press your luck as long as you want, and then eventually you can save cards, and you slide them down to your bottom row. The thing is, you can never have 3 of the same icons. Oh, you're scrapped, yeah. You can never have 3 of the same icons, and it's in the row that you saved as well as the row that you're creating. So you have to be careful in what you save. You want a solid variety, so you're not getting too much of a certain type, but you're also trying to get a whole bunch of everything. So interesting press your luck, interesting placement on the table, interesting choice of when you're going to stop and what you're going to slide down. Just seemed like a really interesting game. There it is. That's our top 15 for the real life.
Our top 15 games.
Games, yeah, exactly.
Games. I think I got that right. Something like that.
It better be.
Yeah.
We're just... All right. So, we are going to play these, and we're going to narrow it down to a top whatever. We've usually done 3.
I think we got to do 3. I mean, there's enough good games here.
Exactly.
There's enough good games here, and I already have some bonus stars that I want to dole out. Well, thanks as always, everybody, for watching. Thanks for folks for submitting. We're not here without you. Thanks, judges, for looking at stuff for us.
Yeah, and thanks, Steve, for editing this mess.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
All right, see ya.